Kidney beans. The name practically explains itself the moment you look at one. Curved, deep reddish-brown, shaped with almost suspicious accuracy to resemble the organ it shares a name with. But here is the detail most people go their entire lives without knowing. Raw kidney beans contain a compound called phytohemagglutinin, and consuming just a small handful of undercooked ones can have you bent over in severe gastrointestinal distress within a few hours. The toxin is potent enough to require a full rolling boil to destroy, and here is the part that catches people off guard. A slow cooker never gets hot enough to do the job. This is why every serious kidney bean recipe insists on boiling them hard before anything else happens. Beyond the danger, kidney beans have one of the longer agricultural histories of any food on this list. They have been cultivated across the Americas for over 7,000 years and played a genuine role in allowing early Mesoamerican civilizations to stop following herds around and build permanent settlements instead. Modern nutritional research has also confirmed something those ancient communities figured out by necessity: kidney beans are rich in resistant starch, the kind that feeds beneficial gut bacteria rather than spiking blood sugar. Regular bean eaters, studies show, tend to have measurably lower rates of colon cancer. 7,000 years of instinct, eventually validated by a laboratory. Vanilla beans. Here is the first curveball on the list. Vanilla beans are not beans. They are the seed pod of an orchid, specifically the only orchid species cultivated commercially for food anywhere on Earth. The plant is native to Mexico, and for centuries it had an extraordinarily specific pollination requirement. One particular species of local bee, found only in that region, was the only creature capable of transferring its pollen. When European traders tried growing vanilla anywhere else in the world, the plants thrived, flowered beautifully on schedule, and produced absolutely nothing. Decades of failed attempts. Entire fortunes lost to flowers that would bloom and drop without yielding a single pod. The solution came in 1841, from a 12-year-old enslaved boy named Edmond Albius, living on the French island of Réunion in the Indian Ocean. Working with a thin stick and his thumb, he figured out how to hand-pollinate the vanilla flower manually, a technique so effective and so precise that it is still the method used by every vanilla farmer on the planet today. His discovery unlocked a global industry worth billions of dollars annually. He received no recognition in his lifetime, no compensation of any kind, and died in poverty. Madagascar now produces roughly 80% of the world's vanilla supply, and vanilla remains the second most expensive spice on Earth, trailing only saffron. Castor beans. Not a food. Not even close to a food, and the reason why is one of the more sobering facts in this entire video. Castor beans contain ricin, one of the most acutely lethal naturally occurring toxins known to science. 4 to 8 seeds, if chewed and swallowed by an adult, can be fatal. There is no antidote. The mechanism involves the toxin entering cells and shutting down protein synthesis entirely, and the outcome without immediate medical intervention is grim. And yet the oil pressed from these exact same seeds, once the ricin has been neutralized through processing, has been in continuous use for centuries. Ancient Egyptians burned it in oil lamps. It was a standard industrial lubricant for early aircraft engines during the First World War, valued specifically because it held up under the kind of heat that broke down petroleum-based alternatives. Today it shows up in laxatives, in cosmetics, in lipstick formulations. The plant itself is frequently grown as an ornamental shrub in residential gardens, with deeply cut dramatic leaves and striking seed pods, and the overwhelming majority of people growing it have no idea that the seeds sitting in their backyard represent one of the more dangerous things you could find in a suburban garden. Cocoa beans. This is where chocolate originates, but tasting a raw cocoa bean fresh off the tree would give you absolutely no indication of that. Raw cocoa is intensely bitter, chalky, and astringent in a way that makes it essentially inedible as is. The journey from that raw bean to anything resembling chocolate is a multi-step transformation involving fermenting the beans in wooden crates for roughly a week, then spreading them out to dry in the sun, then roasting, then grinding, then a refinement process that the ancient Mesoamerican civilizations who first cultivated it would barely recognize. The Maya and Aztec valued cocoa beans so highly that they functioned as currency in formal economic transactions. Historical records suggest that a live rabbit might cost approximately 10 cocoa beans at market. A human slave could run as high as 100. The Emperor Moctezuma II reportedly maintained entire warehouse complexes stocked with cocoa beans as a form of royal treasury. One more detail worth holding on to: cocoa beans contain a compound called theobromine, which the human body processes without difficulty. Dogs cannot. Their livers lack the enzyme required to break it down, which is why chocolate toxicity in pets is a genuine and surprisingly common veterinary emergency, and why leaving a chocolate bar on a low table is more serious than most people realize. Lima beans. Named after Lima, the capital of Peru, where they were being cultivated over 7,000 years ago, long before that city existed under that name or any other. Like kidney beans, raw lima beans are not a casual snacking option. Certain varieties, particularly those grown in parts of Africa and South Asia, contain cyanogenic glycosides, compounds that release actual hydrogen cyanide when the raw bean is crushed or chewed. The amount can be significant enough to cause serious harm. Proper soaking followed by thorough boiling neutralizes the compounds completely, which is why lima bean salads are not causing mass casualty events at neighborhood potlucks. But the raw chemistry is real. Archaeologists excavating ancient burial sites in Peru have found lima bean remains deliberately wrapped and preserved alongside human remains, suggesting the beans carried ceremonial or spiritual significance well beyond their nutritional value. Their current reputation in the United States is substantially less dignified. They are perhaps the vegetable most reliably associated with childhood refusal and disgusted expressions at dinner tables. A fairly rough legacy for a crop that fed civilizations for millennia. Chickpeas. One of the oldest continuously cultivated crops in recorded human history, with archaeological evidence of domestication going back roughly 10,000 years in the region that now constitutes southeastern Turkey. The name has no connection whatsoever to poultry. It derives from the Latin word cicer, which is also the root of the Roman statesman Cicero's family name, a detail that historians attribute to an ancestor who supposedly had a nose with a chickpea-shaped lump on it, which either reflects a very specific family trait or a very harsh nickname that became permanent. Chickpeas appear in some of the earliest written recipes ever recovered. They are the foundational ingredient in both hummus and falafel, two preparations that multiple cultures across the Middle East and Mediterranean have been arguing about the true origin of for generations, with no resolution in sight and considerable passion on all sides. Nutritionally, chickpeas provide one of the more complete plant-based protein profiles available, which is a significant part of why they became central to vegetarian cooking across Asia long before that concept had a name in the West, and why they have become one of the most widely used ingredients in contemporary vegan food culture globally. Coffee beans. Another entry on this list that is not technically a bean. Coffee beans are the seed found at the center of a small red fruit called a coffee cherry, and what you roast, grind, and brew every morning is, botanically speaking, a pit. The most beloved psychoactive seed in human history. The origin story most often repeated involves an Ethiopian goat herder named Kaldi who noticed his herd behaving with unusual energy after browsing on berries from a particular bush, brought some to a local monastery, and inadvertently launched one of the most consequential agricultural and cultural revolutions in history. Whether that story is historically accurate or simply a good narrative that attached itself to a real discovery, coffee moved from Ethiopia through the Arab world by the 15th century and proceeded to reshape global civilization in ways that are difficult to overstate. Coffee houses in the Ottoman Empire and across Europe became informal parliaments, places where ideas about politics, religion, science, and commerce circulated freely and loudly enough that several rulers attempted outright bans, convinced these establishments were incubating dangerous thinking. They were not entirely wrong. Caffeine, the compound that makes all of this matter, is the most widely consumed psychoactive substance on the planet by a significant margin. It is the direct reason that a substantial portion of the global population experiences genuine cognitive impairment before their first cup of the morning. Fava beans. Among the oldest domesticated crops still in regular use, eaten across the Mediterranean and Middle East for thousands of years before written records existed to document it. For the majority of the population, fava beans are simply a nutritious and pleasantly earthy legume. For approximately 400 million people worldwide, they are a genuine medical risk. A genetic condition called G6PD deficiency, one of the most common enzyme deficiencies in the world, causes a specific and sometimes severe reaction to fava bean consumption. In affected individuals, eating favas can trigger a rapid and dangerous breakdown of red blood cells, a condition called favism, which in serious cases can require emergency transfusion. The condition is most prevalent in populations from the Mediterranean, sub-Saharan Africa, and parts of South and Southeast Asia, which maps almost precisely onto the regions where fava beans have been grown and eaten for the longest time. Whether that overlap represents evolutionary pressure, coincidence, or something more complicated is still an open question in the research literature. Pythagoras, the ancient Greek mathematician, famously refused to eat fava beans and reportedly would not even walk through a field where they were growing. Modern historians still disagree on whether this was a practical health precaution, a religious prohibition connected to his philosophical school, or something else entirely. The debate has been running for 2.5 millennia and shows no signs of resolution. Soybeans. Cultivated in China for over 9,000 years and arguably the single most economically consequential plant on this entire list when measured by global trade volume and industrial application. A single soybean crop can be processed into tofu, soy sauce, edamame, cooking oil, livestock feed, and biodiesel within the same supply chain. That extraordinary range of applications is the reason the United States and Brazil now compete for the title of world's largest producer, between them farming soybeans across hundreds of millions of acres annually to supply a global demand that shows no signs of slowing. Soybeans are also one of a small number of plant foods containing all 9 essential amino acids in nutritionally meaningful quantities, a characteristic that made them the protein backbone of vegetarian diets across East Asia for centuries before Western nutritional science developed the vocabulary to explain why. During the Second World War, soybean oil served as a primary substitute for butter and cooking fat across the United States and Europe when traditional animal-based supplies were redirected to military logistics. The Western dependence on soy that followed the war never fully reversed. Mung beans. Small, bright green, and the source of the great majority of bean sprouts found in stir-fries, spring rolls, and Asian-style salads across the world. Native to the Indian subcontinent, where cultivation dates back at least 4,500 years, mung beans have one characteristic that sets them apart from almost every other legume: they sprout faster and more reliably than nearly anything else in the category. That predictability is precisely why commercial sprout producers worldwide settled on mung beans as their default product. In traditional Chinese medicine, mung bean soup has been prescribed for centuries as a treatment believed to reduce internal heat during periods of extreme summer temperature. Whether the underlying mechanism is what practitioners described or something more pharmacologically straightforward, the soup remains a genuine summer staple across China today. Mung beans are also among the most easily digestible legumes available, which is why they are frequently among the first solid foods introduced to infants in South and Southeast Asian food traditions, a fact supported by their low allergenic profile and gentle fiber content. Black-eyed peas. Despite the name, these are not peas. They are beans, and the taxonomic confusion is centuries old and shows no sign of being corrected at this point. Native to West Africa, black-eyed peas crossed the Atlantic as part of the transatlantic slave trade and became embedded in Southern American foodways in a way that has lasted to the present. The New Year's Day tradition of eating black-eyed peas for good luck and prosperity in the coming year, still widely observed across the American South, traces its roots to a convergence of West African and Jewish culinary customs that merged and evolved in the region across generations. During the Civil War, black-eyed peas played an unintentionally important role in survival. Union troops conducting raids on Confederate food stores largely passed them over, considering them animal fodder rather than human food, which left enough behind in some communities to sustain people through the winter months when other provisions were gone. That accidental act of preservation is part of why the symbolic weight of the tradition runs as deep as it does in Southern culture. The bean that was overlooked became the bean that saved lives, and memory like that does not disappear quickly. Peanuts. The outlier on this entire list. Peanuts are legumes, technically and taxonomically far closer to beans than to any tree nut, but almost nobody processes them that way, and the snack industry has spent a century reinforcing the misconception. What makes peanuts genuinely strange, beyond their misclassification, is the mechanics of how they grow. The plant flowers above ground in the normal way. After pollination, however, the flower stalk bends downward under its own physical weight, pushes into the soil, and the peanut pod develops entirely underground, completely invisible until harvest. This process is called geocarpy, and it is extraordinarily rare among food crops. Very few things on Earth do this. Peanuts were first cultivated in South America more than 7,000 years ago. In the early 20th century, George Washington Carver, a scientist who had been born into slavery, developed more than 300 documented applications for the peanut plant, ranging from industrial dyes to plastics to cosmetics to soil-enriching agricultural techniques. His work transformed the peanut from a minor regional crop into one of the most economically significant agricultural products in the American South, providing a viable alternative to cotton at a moment when the boll weevil was devastating cotton farming across the region. Navy beans. The name comes from the United States Navy, not from the color, which is a detail that surprises almost everyone. Small, white, and nutritionally dense, navy beans were a standard ration on American naval vessels throughout most of the 19th century for a straightforward logistical reason. They stored for months in ship's hold conditions without spoiling and delivered enough calories to maintain a working crew at sea. The bean that kept the fleet operational. They are also the bean in Boston baked beans, and the bean in Senate bean soup, a dish that has been served in the United States Senate dining room every single day since at least 1903. There is a persistent claim that an official congressional mandate requires this, though researchers who have searched the actual legislative record have never found the document. The soup simply appears to have been served every day for over a century because it always has been, which is its own kind of institutional inertia. Nutritionally, navy beans have among the highest dietary fiber content of any common bean variety, which is why they have become a frequent recommendation in cardiac health and metabolic management diets. Adsuki beans. Small, deep red, and sweet enough in their natural profile that the majority of East Asian culinary tradition treats them primarily as a dessert ingredient rather than a savory one. Cultivated in China and Japan for thousands of years, Adsuki beans are the foundation of red bean paste, the filling inside mochi, mooncakes, and taiyaki, the fish-shaped pastry sold at Japanese street festivals. In Japan, a preparation called sekihan, glutinous red rice cooked with adsuki beans, is traditionally served at birthdays and celebratory occasions because the deep red color of the beans is considered symbolic of good fortune and auspicious beginnings. What makes adsuki beans genuinely unusual in the context of dessert ingredients is their nutritional profile, naturally low in fat, reasonably high in protein and fiber, and far less calorie-dense than the butter, cream, or refined sugar fillings they effectively replaced in traditional East Asian sweets. Centuries before the concept of a healthy dessert alternative entered Western food culture, the adsuki bean was already functioning as exactly that across Japan and Korea.